Hey, what's going on, everyone? So today we're going to be doing a full tour of the Living Shell Long Pro. Now, this is our second trip out with this shelter. I didn't bring a ton of stuff with us the first time because I was kind of just getting the lay of the land of how this whole thing's set up. I will say, if you're going for more than 2 nights and you're going with a family or a group of friends, having an outdoor space like a shelter like this really can be worth it for, I think, a lot of people, especially those of you who camp year round. So let's go ahead and check out this thing inside, outside. We're going to do the full walkthrough of it. So hopefully by the end of this, you have a good idea of what it's like camping with the Living Shell Long Pro. Let's get into it. So heading inside the Living Shell Long Pro, you have several different ways you can enter it. I'm just coming right through the front awning right here. And one of the first things you're going to notice about this shelter, and pretty much any pro shelter or tent by Snow Peak, is these front flaps here. And the reason you have these is it provides extra protection from the rain, especially from when you're inside. It allows you to basically close this front panel here, which is a mesh panel, and have still ample ventilation coming through without allowing the rain to enter. So having this side panel is a really nice feature, and that's pretty much exclusive to the Pro series of shelters. You could always open this if you want it and roll it back. There's little toggles in place if you want to create a more open front awning here. But for me, this is pretty much the configuration that I'm going to keep this front awning in. And out front, this is where we kind of created our little kitchen setup. Actually, we have the 4-unit IGT here. This is basically just the Camp Kitchen starter set. We just got the flat burner. I put a double insert in here instead. But yeah, we have our dish bin, and then our coolers and our pantry stuff all off to the side on top of this mesh bench. And we just have a very simplified kitchen setup out here, which has been working out great. And at nighttime, if there's a chance of rain or something like that, you can always tuck this stuff right underneath this front awning area. But yeah, walking underneath this awning at 5'8", depending on if you're shorter, it could work out for you to stand underneath it actually. But for me, my head hits it, so I just cook right out front, but that's actually how I prefer to cook anyway, especially if the conditions are nice like it is today. But heading inside the Living Shell now, you have a really nice, comfortable living space, and the first thing you're going to notice within here is you get a ton of windows. I mean, I think that's what pretty much sets this shelter apart from the rest of the lineup is the windows on here, and it's the most recognizable thing about it. And you might be wondering, like, why are all these windows everywhere, and why are there so many tiny ones, and there's some just odd shaped ones? Well, the reason for having all these windows is it allows you to really dial in the amount of ventilation that you want to have given the weather conditions. So if it was really cold out and you want to close things up but keep key ones open for, airflow, you can do that. Or if it's raining out and you just want to close things up but leave them partially open to allow the rain to drape off the tent, but leave some mesh open towards the top where the shield roof kind of shields the rain off onto the rest of the shelter, onto the ground, you can do that as well. And you also have just key little windows down here for that targeted ventilation. I guess the thing is, having all these windows just allows you to have full control over how you're going to vent it. And you really don't know if you're camping year round, like what the weather is going to be like, which way the wind is going to be blowing, things like that. So having options like this, it basically allows you to dial this thing in for a more comfortable space while living in it. And that's kind of why it's called, I guess, the Living Shell Long Pro, is because you're going to be spending a lot of time while you're out camping inside of this living space. So the way we've set it up this time is we brought along with us the couch, and then we have a couple of beach chairs here and a coffee table right in the center. And this creates just a really nice, comfortable space to gather around for the 3 of us. You could easily fit 4 people. As you can see, I brought an extra chair along, and you could fit even more chairs inside of here as well. But the way we set it up this time is behind the futon here, we just have the kids corner, or as Emmett calls it, the clubhouse back here. And that's been a really cool thing to have. And especially on this trip, because there was actually another 6-year-old who was camping right next to us. So Emmett and his buddy were just, playing games in here together. And it was just really cool to see it in action. For group gatherings, this is honestly a perfect situation, I'd say, right here. And it's one of the reasons that I kind of am hesitant to put an inner tent inside of here. I do see perks of using it for certain trips, like if it was just like the 3 of us going out and we want to keep things more minimal, maybe we didn't have room on the site to put an extra tent. I haven't used it myself, but You know, I imagine the three of us could fit in there just fine, but it would take up about half this shelter here. So that's something to keep in mind, is you're going to lose quite a bit of the living space. You could always have this awning opened up, still utilize this entire space. Just note that you wouldn't have the mesh out front here to close up. So the mesh pretty much ends here. So if you were going to keep that closed, say if you're out in the bug weather season, then you pretty much would just have half this space right here. So a couple chairs, maybe a coffee table in the middle. For me, I kind of like this as just an open shelter, and I enjoy having all the space. And head height in here is really generous. I mean, I'm 5'8", like I mentioned before, and walking in here, I have no issues hitting the ceiling. I mean, I can't even barely reach it in the center here. But yeah, edge to edge, I can pretty much walk around the entire parameter of the shelter. Now it does taper down towards the sides, of course, and especially towards the back where the inner tent is intended to go. But again, like, that's expected with any shelter. That's a good shelter, at least, because if it was perfectly squared off, to me that's a bad shelter, because it's probably not going to be stable in windy conditions and just in any weather conditions for that matter. So I don't mind that it tapers down a little bit, and I'd say it still allows, you know, plenty of freedom of movement throughout the entire shelter. I mean, the three of us have been using this the entire weekend, and never once have I felt like this was crammed at all. So plenty of room for, you know, a family of 3, 4, and even more than that. Like, I'd say, like, if you have extra kids like running around in here, there's a ton of space. Now, something else to point out is you're going to notice on all Snow Peak shelters, they have this placement tape throughout the entire floor. Now, this is pretty much just for the setup process. You can unroll it after everything is set up and tuck it away in these little pockets on the corner they have here. But for me, like, it's pretty much flat right now with the grass, and none of us have tripped over it yet. So I kind of just leave it in place, but you can unroll it if you find like the ground you're on is a little bit uneven and it's becoming a tripping hazard. You can definitely just unbuckle it. It's just a little snap, and tuck it into one of the pouches right there. Other than that, though, there are hooks all over the shelter. None in the direct center right here, but there's one right behind it, which is pretty much one of the tent hooks right there, which I'm using to hang my Hazuki lantern. But throughout the entire thing, you're going to find just different elastic cords, different loops. So you can get clever with how you're going to do your lighting setup in here. There's plenty of options for that. So another cool thing about this shelter is you can dock this to other tents as well. So I know this works perfectly with the dock dome. I think you can fit amenity domes inside of here, depending if it's the small or the medium. You can just unzip either panel. Any of those should dock right to the back of this, because they all have that same kind of rounded entrance to it. And then you can just walk straight into your tent pretty much from inside the shelter, and you could kind of just live out of this entire setup for the most part. Now, I don't really find it that much more inconvenient to just walk a few feet over to my Alpha Breeze off to the side. And I do think you could potentially dock it to the front of it if you were to kind of insert it. I don't know. It'd be kind of tricky. The Alpha Breeze is pretty big and the openings are kind of large. So I think it might be a kind of an awkward fit. Yeah, looking at it right now, I don't really see a good spot to dock it, but I'm sure somebody could get clever and try something and it might work out. Other than that, though, on the exterior, the only thing I want to point out is there are side skirts that wrap around the entire parameter of this shelter, and there are also guy-out attachments throughout it as well for extra structural rigidity. And then you have on top what they call their shield roof, which comes with this shelter, and this is going to protect it not only from the elements and the sun. It also creates just an extra space for the water to drape off away from the shelter, and it allows you to keep the windows partially open towards the top for extra ventilation to come through. So I think adding this onto it is definitely worth it, especially if you're going, you know, more than a couple nights. And it's really not hard to attach on at all. It's just using these little elastic hooks that are throughout the entire thing. And together with Ashley and I putting this thing on, it was really easy, honestly. One of the easiest shield roofs that I've put on. So yeah, other than that, I'd say the only other thing I want to mention is, you know, staking in these shelters can be some work depending on the ground you are doing it in. I'm camping on grass right now, so it's not that difficult. But if this was rockier terrain or hard soil, you know, it could be some work staking these in, because they do require a lot of stakes. And if you already have an Alpha Breeze, you're probably familiar with this A-frame pole right here. and it sets up pretty much the same way. You just put that C-pole down the middle there, and then you're just gonna connect that A-frame pole in and connect that in. And then from there, it's really just inserting a couple longer poles, just like you would on the Alpha Breeze, the red pole that goes around the front hoop. You're just gonna put 3 of those, and that's it. There's not a lot to this one. I'll say it was definitely easier, I feel like, to manage than the Landlock on the first try. Just setting this one up, it just felt really familiar, I guess. And I am pretty familiar with the Alpha Breeze. I've used that tent probably more than any of my other tents. So I will say, like, coming from an Alpha Breeze, transitioning to something like this, it's pretty easy actually. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the tent we're using for this one in conjunction with the living shell is the Alpha Breeze. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one. I have plenty of reviews on that already. But you can see here, we pretty much just have our Exped Megamat Max here. That's a 52-inch mattress. And then we have a 25-inch mattress for Emmett. Now, I'd say for like a family of 3, this is a perfect situation. It's very comfortable for 2 people. So 2 people, you can still set this up, have plenty of space to walk around, set up extra little tables in here, and enjoy the space inside of this tent. So I think this could also work for a family of 4, where you could have this double-size Exped here and just have 2 20-inch mattresses, which would basically be 40 inches of mattresses for the 2 kids. And in the daytime or at nighttime, if you needed to stand up in here to change clothes and you didn't want to be standing on top of the mattresses, you could just put the 2 backpacking pads on top of each other, and you still have this little center area to stand up and change clothes in the center of the tent. So yeah, I'd say it's a great size for 2, 3, 4. That's pretty much where I'd cap it as at 4 people. Any more than that, it's going to get pretty crammed. Now in the front here, you do have extra room for gear storage. We just have a couple little small duffels. I think it's a great size tent for how simple it is to set up. It's primarily why I use this one the most. It's been really reliable. It's actually our first car camping tent, and it's probably my favorite one still to this day out of all the tents that I've used, and it's the one that gets used the most. I just gravitate towards this one the most. But yeah, I will say if you're a family of 4 with smaller kids, I guess that's something I should emphasize as well. With smaller children, we have a 6-year-old, for instance, you know, having 2 smaller kids in here, I don't think it would be an issue. And I personally wouldn't go for a bigger tent if I just had 2 smaller kids inside of here. I think the situation here would be just fine. It's just you're going to want to pair this with a tarp or shelter or something else if you're going for, you know, more than a single night trip, to have that extra living space out front. All right, well, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the tour of the Living Shell Long Pro. And I have to say, if you are camping with a family or if you go frequently with friends, having an outdoor living space like this, especially if you're a year-round camper and you go more than a single night, is really nice, and it gives you full control when you go with the Pro Series over ventilation and how you're going to configure these things. So that's something to consider as well. If you have any other questions at all about the Living Shell, be sure to comment down below and I'll get right back to you. And I've also included links to the Living Shell and some of the gear within this video in the description, so be sure to check that out as well. And those are affiliate links, so clicking them, using them, doing all those things really does go a long way towards helping my channel grow. So thank you so much for your support with that. As always, thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Take care.